3 weeks and 11 failed Senate votes later, the shutdown rages on. How does this play out, or how does it end? And what comes after?
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is All Things with Kim Strassel.
Welcome to All Things with Kim Strassel. And joining us this week is a man who would know more about the state of play than just about anyone else in Washington, House Speaker Mike Johnson. Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Hey, Kim, great to be with you. I really appreciate your work all the time, so it's a delight.
Thank you. Your House passed a continuing resolution to keep government funded more than 3 weeks ago. Senate Democrats continue to refuse to allow it to pass in the Senate on Monday, blocking it for the 11th time. I know this is a broad question, but what do you see happening next?
Well, thanks. It was actually over a month ago now, 32 days, not that anybody's counting, but we passed that on September 19th. And what's really important, and we sound like a broken record, but that's what's required to get the truth out there, is that this is a totally clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution. It's exactly what Chuck Schumer voted for just this year, 7 months ago in March, and gave an impassioned plea on the Senate floor, saying it was the only logical and right thing to do because it would inflict pain on the American people to shut down the government. And yet, that's what they've done. And they've now voted almost a dozen times, as you said, actually 12 times total when you count the House Democrats who voted against it, and now the Senate Democrats 11 times. So they voted to shut the government down. A couple of important points here before we get to what happens next. It's the first time in history, Kim, that any party has had the audacity to shut down the government over a clean CR. And this is very important. We didn't add it up with Republican priorities or policy riders or anything. I mean, it's 24 pages in length. It just says literally, keep the lights open. Why? So that we could buy 7 more weeks to November 21st to finish the House appropriations process. We're trying to rebuild the muscle memory and do that the way it's supposed to be done. And the Democrat appropriators in the House agreed to that date as an extension, but then they've all voted it down. So real people feeling real pain. I don't know how we break the impasse. There is literally nothing that I can offer to negotiate to the Democrats because, again, I didn't put any of my chips in on the table. I didn't add any policy priorities I can pull off the CR to make it more palatable. There's nothing we can do but wait for at least 5 centrist Democrats, if any are left in the Senate, to come to their senses and stop inflicting the pain on the American people. Because I don't think Chuck Schumer is ever going to be able to face the radical left in this party. And Kim, that's exactly what all this is about.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. This is as much about Chuck Schumer trying to avoid a primary as it is anything else. I appreciate Democrats are talking about healthcare, but that political reality is worth keeping in mind. The White House economic official Kevin Hassett suggested that this might be over after the No Kings protest. That obviously did not happen. But do you see another kind of deadline, a moment, a milestone, a date coming up in which there could maybe be another flashpoint or where additional pressure comes to bear? You have something like that in your head?
Well, I mean, look, we're hearing rumors. I mean, we're all dependent upon what 5 Senate Democrats do. The point that's important to reemphasize for everybody listening to us, I mean, your audience is very sophisticated. They know this, but a lot of people back home get lost in it. It's a math problem, right? You got to have 60 votes in the Senate. We only have 53 Republicans. So we've got to have a handful of Democrats do the right thing. The pressure points that come forward on the calendar are, well, I mean, November 1st, they all proclaim breathlessly that, insurance company will be sending out notices about premium increases at the end of the year. And then, you have the holidays coming up. I mean, one of the rumors we heard is that Senate Democrats want to keep this thing closed until Thanksgiving. I mean, it's madness because think of the people who are so adversely affected. I mean, troops will go without paychecks. I mean, TSA agents, air traffic controllers. By the way, if your flight is delayed today or in the coming days, it's because the Senate Democrats are doing that to you. Because Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, said yesterday, 53% of flight delays are now attributed to personnel shortages. We don't have people in the towers because we're asking them to work in these high-stress jobs without pay. They can't handle the stress of it. I mean, it just goes on and on. Veterans health services, nutrition assistance to young women with infants. I mean, all this is suspended because these guys want to play politics. It is 100% about the rise of Marxism in New York and around the country. But as we saw on display with the rallies, the Hate America rallies, we call them on Saturday, I mean, they have a real problem. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are the decision makers in the House and Senate. They're two respective Democratic leaders. They both hail from New York. They both are afraid they're going to get a challenge in their next reelect from a Marxist, a disciple of Mondami. Either AOC will challenge Schumer or Hakeem will get a challenge from this young city councilman who's being rumored to run against him. He's a Mondami disciple, or both of those. And so they cannot yield. They have to show a fight so they can prove to the far left that they're willing to fight Trump. I mean, 100%. That's what this is about, Kim. They've done a 180. They've always voted for CRs. They did it 13 times in the Biden administration. And again, they did it as recently, Schumer did it as recently as this year. And now suddenly they've changed their tune. We all know why.
Speaking of Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, he said that the two of you spoke this past weekend. Did that happen? Did anything, what was said, what came of it?
Yeah, I called Hakeem. I mean, we both agreed to stay off the record. It was a personal call. I don't hate anybody in this building, Kim. And you and I know we share this philosophy. These aren't our enemies. These are our fellow Americans. We have battles over ideas. And this is how the founders envisioned for this to work. But I don't hate Hakeem. In fact, I like him personally. I mean, I regard him as a friend. And I have had a good relationship as the two respective leaders of our parties here of trust. And all of this has gotten kind of personal. I regret that. I told him that it shouldn't be personal, and we're going to fight out on policy, but we're going to keep it friendly on a personal side. That's important to me as a Bible believing Christian. I think that's an important thing. Hakeem and I have that share that belief in common, and that's really what that conversation was about.
Yeah, I actually miss that. Things certainly feel a lot different than when I was first in Washington 25 years ago. There's a lot more animosity and a lot less talk about ideas. So I'm glad to hear you guys are keeping that open. Let's dig into something that you just said. I mean, I think some people, and it's an interesting thing, you're talking about the pain and the disruption some people are having. On the other hand, I think that, for many, many Americans, at least so far, this has kind of been something that's happened without a lot of awareness because it hasn't affected their day-to-day lives. And that's in part because, look, the Trump administration, this is not their first shutdown rodeo, and they learned a lot of useful moves the last time they did this to try to ease the difficulty of a shutdown. I know troops have been paid once, but it sounds as though the options are beginning to run a little bit more slim. And things, I saw a story the other day saying that they're now scrabbling to try to find some pots of money to maybe pay air traffic controllers, because you're beginning to see a lot of them calling in, unable to come in the job. What do you foresee else happening in the coming weeks as it becomes more difficult to allay the pain of this and more widespread ramifications of the shutdown?
Well, I greatly respect our commander-in-chief. I spent a couple of hours with the president in the Oval Office last night. We talked about all these things. He is bending over backwards. I mean, really doing heroic work to try to find these pots of funding that have been unspent or unobligated and move it over to address the first priorities. I mean, paying the troops, that's solely because President Trump stepped into the breach and decided to do that, using his authority as he has to make sure that our first priorities are first. We take care of those who are serving and taking care of all the rest of us. But it's not an inexhaustible fund, and that is the problem. We don't know if there's enough to pay the next paycheck period, which of course is the end of this month. And so it starts to get very real and very dangerous. You're talking about air traffic controllers. I mean, we were already shorthanded, right? And for the people who use, commercial air and private air for that matter, I mean, influential people, business travelers and everyday hardworking Americans, your lives are going to be disrupted in so many ways. The pain has been delayed in some respects. One good example is with the WIC funding, women, infants, and children, these nutrition programs they rely upon. The president found a way to bootstrap from a 1930s era statute. His legal team dug in and found a way to use tariff revenue to cover some of those funds. But again, these are not inexhaustible pots of money. We can't do this forever. And real peril is right around the corner. I mentioned in the press conference this morning, nuclear deterrence. I mean, we have the people in charge of our nuclear arsenal who are being furloughed right now. This is not a game. It has very serious implications. And the Democrats are willing to play politics, and it is disgusting to us.
So this has dragged on for so long, and thank you for the correction. You guys did pass your CR a month ago. Government shut down a bit later than that.
We all get lost in the days right now. It's madness.
I know. But because this has dragged on so long, I now see talk in the Senate that this original, the CR that you did pass, which would have provided a patch until mid-November, that now we've eaten up so much time that might not give everyone enough time to actually get regular appropriations done after government open. And so now there's talk about having the House come back to pass yet a new CR that would give you more time. You've kept the House out of session because you've got your view is you did your job and the Senate needs to act. Are you open to the idea of bringing the House back to do that?
Well, we've not conceded that point yet, and we're not yet there. But what your point is a very valid one. I mean, it's ironic. The Democrats who are causing the shutdown, and have voted now a dozen times between House and Senate to do so, are eating up the clock when all of us know that we've got to meet the deadlines. We've got to get the funding done. Remember, as I mentioned, House Democrats worked with House Republicans on the Appropriations Committee here to determine that they needed 7 weeks to finish the process, and now half of that's gone. So we're within a month now of the time elapsing on it. So I'm heartened, and I'll tell you, it's encouraging to me that appropriators have not ceased their work. They did get all the 12 appropriations bills through the House committee, which is great. We got 3 off the House floor. 3 were passed on the Senate floor. They don't align directly, so then it goes to conference committee. That's being held up right now. But the appropriators have continued their work through this period, and they're preparing the next batches of bills to be processed on the floor. And so we'll have that ready to go as soon as we get the lights back on. So it's a touch and go day by day analysis that we have here as a leadership team. But I'm certainly hopeful, again, that 5 moderate Democrats, if there are any left in the Senate, they'll do the right thing because they know they're going to be blamed for this. I mean, the record is so clear. It has never been as clear as it is right now. Republicans have voted over and over to open the government, and Democrats have voted over and over to close it. I mean, the blame is squarely in their corner. They've painted themselves into that corner. They don't have an easy way out, but there's nothing I can provide them to help them in that regard. They just got to do the right thing.
One other flashpoint that's come up, and I just want to get you on the record on this because I have to be honest, I'm a little confused at the flap over it myself, but there's been a lot of complaints from Democrats. Adelita Grijalva won a special election in Arizona on September 23rd to finish the rest of the term of her father, Raul Grijalva, who passed away in March. And Democrats want you to seat her in a pro forma session. You guys have those every once in a while. It lasts an afternoon. You're saying you'll do it when government reopens and the House is back in real legislative session. There's been protests. There's a threat of litigation out of Arizona. Some are even claiming that you are trying to refuse to seat her to stop her signing this discharge petition over the Jeffrey Epstein files. Am I missing something here? I'm not entirely sure about this outrage. She's not missing any votes. And even if she were sworn in and signed that petition tomorrow, no action can happen on it until the House does come back into legislative session. What is going on here?
It's total absurdity. What you're seeing is the art of distraction. It's a red herring, right? So the Democrats, they don't have a leader, they don't have a platform, they have no policies they can articulate, and they aren't even able to say what they want to get out of the shutdown, short of their initial counter proposal to spend $1.5 trillion new dollars and give $200 billion in healthcare to illegal aliens on the back of U.S. taxpayers, among other nonsense. They know we're not doing that. It wasn't serious. And so because they have none of that, and because they know they're increasingly, the American people are understanding what's going on here because we're so consistent in sharing the truth every day, that they're being blamed rightfully for the chaos that's ensued. So they're looking for distractions. So they've lobbed onto this thing about Rep-elect Grijalva. It is total and utter nonsense. And I've had to explain it in press conferences almost every day. When that is the issue of the day, they have nothing to argue about. So real quick, the quick summary is you're right. She was elected September 23rd in a special election to fill her father's seat. Well, the important thing about that date is we were already out of session. We had already finished the work. We've not been back to legislative session since then. I've told her, and I've told all my Democrat colleagues, I'm happy to administer the oath to her as soon as we get back to legislative session, as soon as Chuck Schumer, and by the way, the 2 Democrat senators from her state in Arizona, Kelly and Gallegos, vote to reopen the government. I'm happy. We'll do it on the first day we're back. But here's the thing. I'm following the Pelosi precedent on this. They're saying that this is some sort of like constitutional, violation or something. It's a joke. The attorney general from Arizona just wants publicity. So she's lobbed onto this as well to get her day in the sun. Bring it, sister. Okay. It's the Pelosi president. Okay. When my dear friend Julia Letlow was elected in a very similar circumstance, tragically, she lost her husband, my friend Luke, from COVID, and she ran in a special election to fill his seat. She was elected. Speaker Pelosi took 25 days to administer her the oath. We didn't have protests and go, doing TikTok videos about it because we understood that's just the way the process works. Two Democrats, other example, Pat Ryan and Joe Semplinsky. When Nancy Pelosi was Speaker, they were elected in a special election during the August recess. And so she appropriately waited 21 days to administer the oath to them after we got back to legislative session. We're doing exactly how this has always worked throughout the years. There's nothing to see here. And I told Rep. Grijalva, in the press conference, I explained, and I told Hakeem, she needs to get to work. She needs to stop doing TikTok videos and serve her constituents. The only thing that she hasn't done is taken the oath and will administer it as soon as possible. But in the meantime, she should be taking her constituent calls. She should have her 16 employees that she's already hired in here working, like all my staff's working, to handle the crisis that has been created by the Democrats. Her constituents have serious challenges and problems right now. She can be directing them to the right offices. And if it's something outside of her scope, she can send it to her two senators, because they apparently have a lot of idle time right now because they're doing TikTok videos themselves out in front of my office for publicity stunts. So the whole thing is ridiculous. Regarding Epstein, as we explained in our press conference this morning, the Epstein files are being released. There's 43,000 documents out. We did another big release, the third batch of documents from the Epstein estate files that were dug into over the last couple of weeks.
If they're from the Oversight Committee?
Yes, the Oversight Committee has been working in bipartisan fashion in this investigation. I mean, they're dug in. You got some of the biggest, bulldogs in Congress on the R&D side, all working on this. And I mean, what they released last Friday was Epstein's flight logs, his personal financial ledgers. I mean, his daily calendar. I mean, it's stuff that people have been wanting, and all that's happening. They've got subpoenas pending. They released the Acosta transcript of the interview they gave with him. I mean, all this is newsworthy stuff. So this has nothing to do with Epstein. It's totally unrelated in any way. And all that's happening right now and will continue to.
I just want to, while I still have a chance to talk about, the proximate argument Democrats are making for the shutdown. We've talked about the political reality of, Chuck Schumer and a primary, et cetera. But they're talking a lot about healthcare, and in particular, their demand are these enhanced Obamacare subsidies that were enacted during COVID. They were meant to be temporary. Democrats themselves made them so that they expired. Now they're about to expire. And they're saying we can't open the government until they are extended. Now, I understand and appreciate Republicans have said they're not going to negotiate over this until the government opens again. But I do know that there are Republicans, at least in the Senate, who are interested in coming up with some sort of a deal. They're claiming that, maybe there'd be a way that you extended them with some reforms to those subsidies themselves, the enhanced subsidies. The question I have is, if Republicans are going to go down that road, I mean, we're now how many years into Obamacare? The last time the GOP had a real effort to repeal it was 2017. I appreciate that a lot of people have PTSD from that. I get it.
I'm one of them.
But you're one of them. But the reality is that premiums are going up for everyone, not just the people that have these enhanced subsidies. And that's because Obamacare has been and continues to fail. So are Republicans, if there's any discussion about extending these enhanced subsidies, shouldn't the price be some fundamental reforms to the underlying Obamacare system, some fixes to the things that are actually breaking the health insurance system?
Yes. I mean, you and I could talk about this for a couple of hours. And by the way, thanks for your scholarship on this and your point of view. I mean, your recent article is one we've been citing at the leadership table, and House Republicans are walking around, carrying around copies of it. Very helpful, because the full context of this is important, as you know. And yes, we have PTSD. I was a freshman in Congress when our repeal and replace effort failed. I've just now begun to heal from that, Kim, so, but here's the thing. Obamacare, in my view, and I know you agree with this, I mean, the architects of Obamacare I am certain that they knew that it would implode upon itself. They didn't want it to work. I mean, it was never about making healthcare more affordable. Their objective was a single payer system. They wanted the government to take over healthcare. And so in a short period of time, it became obvious that that would be the inevitable result. But now we're 15 years into it. Premiums have risen by some estimates 60% since 2010 when it was signed into law. And it did exactly the opposite of what was promised. But the sinister thing about Obamacare is, and the way the architects did this, it was diabolical. I mean, in my view, they got the roots in so deep that actually pulling it out from the roots and repealing and replacing is almost an impossibility now because it is so deeply ingrained in it. It involves probably 15% of the U.S. economy, and it will be a catastrophic kind of cascading event if we just repealed it outright. So what we have to do is repair that broken system. We have to bring costs down. We have to increase access to care and increase quality of care. I want to tell you right now, there's only one party who has any real ideas or care or concern to do that, and it's the Republican Party. And we publish these ideas. When I was the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, the largest caucus of conservatives in Congress, back in 2019, we published a 2-volume set of all of our ideas. We worked on it for a year in a task force working group with physicians and stakeholders and all the rest. And we published a menu of options to fix healthcare and achieve those objectives. We have many of those ideas now. This subsidy thing is, again, a red herring. It's a distraction. The subsidy does not expire to the end of December. Everybody knew that. We had always been planning to hash it out and have those bitter debates through October and early November to figure it out. And if there is going to be an extension, there have to be massive reforms. I mean, you and I both know there's no height protections that apply to this. There's no income caps on it. It works out to be a subsidy for insurance companies, which is increasingly driving up the cost. I mean, all the things that you've written about and so many of us know. I don't want to go too deep in the weeds and debating healthcare with them right now because that's what they want. But I'm going to tell you right now, Republicans are not just talking about fixing healthcare. We're the ones actually doing it. We did it in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Code, the Medicaid reforms that we put in there. The CBO, the objective analysis, has come out and said, congratulations, we agree it's going to achieve its objective. Why? Because we got ineligible enrollees off of Medicaid, and it's going to save, by the CBO's estimate, about $185 billion. We won't be Medicaid won't be funding illegal aliens anymore, or young able-bodied men with no dependents who are siphoning the system and draining resources from the elderly, disabled, and young pregnant women who really need it. So we have many more ideas like that. But it's going to take time to build a consensus to fix it. The last point is very important. It was never appropriate or possible for this to be resolved in a CR. This is not a continuing resolution issue. That's why our bill was so simple and nonpartisan. We were trying to keep the lights on so that we could get to these more complex issues. And ironically, again, it is the Democrats who are preventing that.
Well, that's an excellent point. And I think it's one that hasn't been made, is that this is actually a vastly complicated question. It's not a question of just extending these subsidies. It makes me very happy to hear you say all that too, because it sounds as though the understanding is that to simply extend these enhanced subsidies would indeed be handing them their ultimate goal, as you described it, which is to make this a system that fundamentally, ultimately just ends up getting paid for by government. So
that's right. And let me add one more thing that no one's really talking about. But when we did the One Big Beautiful Bill, and the House passed version of the bill, we had cost sharing reductions, which is a provision that would bring down the cost. It would save taxpayers about $30 billion in healthcare, and it would have brought the premiums down by 12%. The Senate Democrats, the same people who are kicking and screaming now and shutting the government down, pulled that provision out of the bill and refused to do it. And what they're demanding right now is they want a full extension, permanent extension of the subsidies, which would not save $30 billion. It would cost taxpayers $358 billion. And by the way, it would only reduce premiums by an estimated less than 6%, 5.8%. Okay, so consider that. We were going to save a lot of money, billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars. We were going to bring the premiums down by 12%. They want to spend almost over $350 billion more and less than half of the premium reduction. When the facts are the facts, and the facts are stubborn things, and they're on our side.
Okay. Well, you know what? We wish you well in this next stage of your shutdown journey. We thank you very much for spending some time with us on what is, I know, a very busy time. We want to thank our listeners. If you like the show, please do hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to write to me, you can at atkim@wsj.com.